The news of Akena's death filtered through Sunday morning, causing shock and indignation. A young man's life had been snuffed after he was shot on Saturday night. With a number of conflicting tales, the incident continues to spawn more unanswered questions as we attempt to piece together the cogent evidence. Primary accounts from Akena's dying declaration indicated that Akena was shot in the stomach at Forest Mall after knocking a car belonging to the now principal suspect, Matthew Kanyamunyu. His girlfriend, Cynthia Munangwari, is the other prime suspect in that case. According to police detectives, a dying declaration was made before 5 medical staff at Nakasero Hospital and a cousin, John Paul Nyeko.
I was trying to park at game, and then I managed to brush the car of someone behind me. So when I got out, since I already made a mistake, to go and negotiate with the guy, I see if I can I can compensate for the damage I have made. I only arrived at the door of the guy, he pulled a pistol in my stomach and he shot me. And the guy was with a woman. So the very guy who shot me is the one who brought me to the hospital, is with a lady.
A dying declaration is an exception to the hearsay rule which prohibits the use of statements made by someone other than the person who repeats it while testifying during a trial. The admission of a dying declaration in common law is grounded in the belief that a man shall not meet his maker with a lie in his mouth. However, Matthew Kanyamunyu, in his response, said that he only acted as a good Samaritan after an assailant shot at Akena near Lugogo and drove him to hospital for treatment. It's not clear yet whether there were any eyewitnesses during this incident. However, by his testimony, Kanyamunyu places himself at one of the scenes of crime. One of the other mysteries that surrounds this case is where exactly the shooting took place. Central to the understanding of any crime by the police is a crime scene. In his dying declaration, Akena claimed that he was shot at Forest Mall, yet Kanyamunyu says the assailant struck on Ginger Road near the Shell Club. When they were first interviewed for a statement, Matthew and Cynthia, the principal suspects in the case, are quoted by the New Vision newspaper as having told the police,
"We had late lunch at Epicurean restaurant in Kololo till 6 p.m. After, we left heading to Luzira."
She narrates further,
"I joined the Lugogo bypass from the upper terrace of Kololo, then joined Ginger Road, and took the extreme right lane heading towards Luzira."
The statement then adds that they saw a dark saloon car driving at a high speed that went past them and knocked their bumper.
"In order to avoid a crash, I then veered off my lane and turned the car and parked on that dusty road that faces Shell Club."
The road that Cynthia speaks of is this one. On Monday, we visited this place and spoke to those who work around the area. Fearing reprimand, many refused to speak to us on camera. Without revealing their identity, they told us that they hadn't witnessed any shooting incident. However, they claimed that a Premier, which is blue in color, had been parked there on Saturday evening on the day of Akena's shooting. They said they couldn't readily identify the person that was driving it. NTV has exclusively obtained photos of Akena's car from the night of the shooting that matches the description that the workers speak of. The car, a blue Premier of registration plates UAU 725G, has marked dents on the right side bumper. It was towed and is currently at the Government Analytical Laboratory. We showed this photo to a forensics expert, Lenny Thomas, a former director of Police's Forensics Unit with 10 years under his belt. And this is what he had to say.
This is where the impact occurred.
Yes.
Seems to be a glancing thing rather than a direct hit because the indicators are not affected. Okay? So it's crashed on the side of the other car.
Is
No.
it possible to tell
Yes.
what motion the car was in when, or who was creating motion? Was it different?
Yeah. You can see this thing is narrowing as it goes this way. And there are paint marks left.
We have asked police for permission to look at the car belonging to Kanyamunyu in their custody, but our request had not yet been responded to by the time of this broadcast. However, police has confirmed that Kanyamunyu's vehicle has scratches. In Kanyamunyu's statement, he further says,
I saw two men come out and walk towards our car. They came to the passenger door and tried to force it open. Eventually, they opened it, and when I went out, a scuffle ensued.
It is in this scuffle that Kanyamunyu says he first heard Akena cry out that he had been shot. He then says they contemplated a bit on going to Kira Road or Ginger Road police station, but instead opted to take Akena using their car to Victoria Medical Center in Kamocha, a hospital that was 5.3 kilometers from where they were. In a message posted on social media by Joseph Kanyamunyu, a brother of the suspect, he claims that the family of Munangwari in Burundi had been targeted for assassination. Her auntie, who was an MP in the East African Assembly, was killed, while her brother survived after being shot 9 times. He imputed that perhaps the assailant who shot Akena had targeted them. But why would Kanyamunyu, who had escaped the barrel of the assassin's gun, not call police or flee into hiding? Supposing the assassins were still trailing him. NTV has also obtained screenshots of the final phone calls that were made by Akena to his cousin brother Nyeko.
Waking up at 6:45, I gave a call to Ken, and he told me he was around Chireka, and he was heading to Chadondo.
The call that Nyeko speaks of was made at 6:41 p.m. to let him know that he was heading to Chadondo. Nyeko, who was driving from home, later arrived at Chadondo and received this phone call from Jordan, a brother to the deceased, claiming that Akena had been shot. Jordan had been called at 7:59 p.m. to reveal that Akena had been shot and taken to Nakasero Hospital for treatment. From wherever he may have been shot from, the phone records indicate that he was shot between 6:41 and 7:59 p.m., giving any of his suspected shooters a whole hour and 18 minutes to tamper with a crime scene. This might explain why till now the police haven't gotten any clues about the killer gun and the bullets. A statement released from Nakasero shows that Akena was brought in at 8 p.m. for treatment, which is a minute less of what the brother says he received the call from the hospital staff. Nakasero Hospital has turned down requests for an interview. When Nyeko got to Nakasero, he remembers finding the prime suspects who told him that brought Akena to the hospital as good Samaritans.
On reaching Nakasero, I was welcomed by a gentleman and a lady who were parked near where the ambulance were parking. So they asked me, "Are you Jordan?" I said, "No, I'm not Jordan." Then they said, "We've been calling Jordan. Who are you?" I said, "No, I'm a brother of the guy whom they told me they have just brought here in the hospital some few minutes ago." Then he said, "Yeah, this guy has been shot when we were seeing, and we managed to at least run with him here in the hospital to see if we can save his life."
It is also here that Akena made a dying declaration. NTV has also obtained a certificate of cause of death that confirms that Akena died of hemorrhagic shock due to gunshot injuries. The medical condition happens when a patient loses over 20% of their blood supply. The murder has presented very complex scenarios that will require skills of detectives. Lenny is now advising the police to turn to searching the car for extra evidence on gunpowder.
Question now comes, did the investigating people swab the cars for gunpowder residue? Because if somebody has deliberately got rid of evidence, there should still be gunpowder residue.
Akena murder may have unfolded over different scenes of crime, with different narratives and having different prime suspects. But what all those narratives arrive at is that a man, and in this case Akena, was shot, bled, and died, and he needs justice. Raymond Mujuni, NTV.